Your brain doesn't know the difference of when something's happening in real life or when you're thinking about it. And so the beauty of hypnosis, and when you play through things in your mind over and over again, is you're training that new muscle memory. You don't actually have to do it in reality. It can just be thought about. And so that's what the hypnotherapy is doing, is it allowing that new neuro linguistic connection to happen at a faster rate. So you're interrupting that old, what you called muscle memory or that old pattern, and to create a new pattern in a faster way.
Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast of military and veterans who refuse to be silenced. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, provide value and solutions, and to change the culture when it comes to mental health within the DoD organizations. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of Your Story Doesn't End Here. Today's guest is Guinevere. Guinevere is a hypnotherapist and mind coach. She helps people reach their goals by 1, teaching them to master their minds, and 2, releasing subconscious patterns holding them back from change. Guinevere comes from a family that has over 5 generations of military service. She herself has decided to help individuals with the internalized war we have with ourselves. She has dedicated her life to helping others understand their mind and how it impacts everything they do and don't do in their life. Guinevere, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'd love to just hop right into hearing a little bit more about you and, why you decided to get into what you got into. I know we touched a little bit on it in your bio, but I want to hear it from you. What's your story and why do you do what you do today?
Oh, great question. How I got into hypnotherapy specifically is I had built a life pretty great for myself, but I was still waking up like every single day, like really pushing, really like just grinding every day. And I was having a really hard time with that. And I knew there must be a different way. It's like, there's got to be another way to live life. I was really fortunate to come into connection with a hypnotherapist who was actually teaching about the power of the mind, the power of thought, and the subconscious, and opened this door for me. And I realized subconsciously I had a very core, deep belief that I was ugly, like an ugly person, like internally. And it was impacting how I was moving through my day, my relationships with people, and just really self-sabotaging just my own well-being. And once I found that and found the power of hypnosis and the ability to change that belief about myself and start really shifting my behaviors and my mindset in everything I do, now I'm able to have like an abundant life, plus also wake up every day super stoked. And I know that I can move through anything that life has for me and anything that my mind offers me, because I've learned how to master my mind. And so because of that, I decided I really felt passionate about helping others do the same.
I love that. And so one of the main reasons I wanted you to come on the show is because I've worked with you before in the hypnotherapy space and had a really good experience, loved it. And I want to share that value with my listeners, but also because I think that there's a lot of value here for people who have these beliefs subconsciously that are affecting them. I didn't start learning more about like the subconscious mind and how those things from childhood and life experiences affect you to us in my later 20s. But I'd love to just touch a little bit more on the subconscious and talking about how that affects us, why it affects us. I mean, these are things that I think a lot of people just don't know. And so what can you expound on for us when it comes to like the subconscious mind?
Yes, a very great question. So just a little background, or just like general information. So we are all born with a primitive mind, and this is where like our fight, flight, freeze comes from. And so like all babies, we all come in with that part of the brain, and it's our reaction to danger. And so one of those 3 is usually how we're going to respond. As we start getting older, between the ages about 0 and 8, our subconscious is forming. And what's happening is we are learning how to be in the world based on our main caretakers. And so however they are exchanging with the world, how they're responding, we learn that that's how we as well need to be responding to the world. It tells us what to move towards, what to move away from. And we're like sponges. We're not like critical about that information. And it doesn't have to be words. It definitely does not have to be words. It's energy, responses, how they respond to you with your own emotions. And we're building our identity through that. Then as we get older, our conscious mind continues to develop, where that's the reasoning, analysis, willpower, logic, decision making. But what's interesting is that subconscious is like 88% of our brain, and that conscious brain is 12% of our brain. And what's happening is, because that sponge time that's determining how we respond in the world, that comes with us into our adult life. And that's 88% of your brain. Okay. And then, but when we get older, we're like, oh, wait, I keep doing this behavior over and over and over again, the self-sabotaging behavior, or I get really angry, or whatever the reactions are that we're not stoked about as we get older. They make total sense for when we were kids and how we responded to the world based on how we learned. But as an adult, we don't have, it's not working for us anymore. And so our conscious brain wants to make a change, but the subconscious is like, no, I'm keeping you safe. I'm keeping you in the familiar. But the conscious brain is like, no, I want to do something different. And so where the hypnotherapy just helps get both of those parts of the brain on the same page. So the subconscious is feeling safe. We're reprogramming, putting different stories and beliefs in there that you decide, of course, so that you can start making those shifts within your life.
So this is interesting, because I remember when I first came to you to work with you, I was like, I want to work on my consistency, because I'm not a consistent person. And I had this belief of I'm not a consistent person, right? And just in like the first few conversations, we realized that like my belief wasn't necessarily that I'm not a consistent person. There were other layers there and other things. So when someone comes to you, do they usually come to you with like, hey, there's this specific belief that I have, I just want to get rid of this one belief? And is it usually that belief, or is it something that's more? Or I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so usually it's a symptom. There's a symptom that's going on, or behavior. So it could be belief or behavior that someone's wanting to change. And so, but usually, yeah, like most of the time, there's a few more layers there that allow folks like yourself to go even deeper to see like what's actually happening and why that behavior is happening and why that belief is there. Like, oh, I'm not consistent. There's always a backstory of like where that's coming from. And usually there's some sort of judgment around themselves that was also placed on them, usually when they're younger.
So that on the flip side too, do you ever have people that maybe don't know what's wrong, and then they just want to discover it through this discovery process? And what does that look like?
Yeah. So whenever someone wants to they might not know like the changes that they want to make, or I should rephrase that. They know that there's a shift that they want to make, that there's something not working. And that's where it is. It's like, it's just something not working for them anymore. It's not bad or wrong. It's just, they know that something needs to shift. And they, a lot of times won't know like where that root comes from. They'll have some ideas, but then through our work together, then they really get to have that deeper understanding of where it's coming from. And then that empowers them to be able to make those changes moving forward, and usually more changes than they're anticipating as well.
Yeah, no, I thought that the idea of hypnotherapy was really cool. And I think when most people think about hypnotherapy, hypnosis, they have a very like general idea. I mean, I can't even say hypnotherapy. Most people that practice like hypnosis, they're going to like your proms or, like some kind of venue. And it's like a very, I don't know. It seems like people are like involuntarily doing certain things. And so
Yeah.
I think it places like the stigma on hypnotherapy, right? So
Yeah.
talk us a little bit through like what the process of hypnotherapy looks like. How do we ensure safety of the people that are going under hypnosis? And then I want to talk about like how this works, right? Like, because we know you're working with the subconscious, but if we could maybe get a little more in depth on like how this works to really like change people's lives.
Yes. Oh, very great points. First of all, with entertainment hypnosis, what's happening there is like people are like paying, they're like agreeing to go for like an experience. So they're saying, yes, I want to go for this experience. And then when the hypnotist like says like who wants to come up on stage, like the people who are putting their hands up, they want to be having this experience. So they're actually giving permission the whole way through, right? And so there actually is quite a lot of control that is happening there. And of course, the hypnotist is going to like choose certain people who are like very suggestible. But that's like entertainment. That's the entertainment realm. But with hypnotherapy, and as you experienced yourself, you're actually in a heightened state of awareness and control. It's just that we're bringing all the focus into one place. And so if there's something that you disagree with, while we're like working with the subconscious, like you get to reject that. It's like, nope, actually, that's not my words. That's not the shift that I'm wanting to make. And so you're actually coming into a more hyper focused, suggestible state. And you're actually in natural hypnosis multiple times a day. That time between asleep and awake or awake and asleep is actually the most effective time for you to like really work with the brain. You're most suggestible then. That's when your subconscious is nice, ripe, and open. But other times that you're naturally in hypnotism is like if you're watching a movie and you get really focused and you're like you don't hear people around you saying whatever they're saying, you're just totally involved. That's also a state of like trance or hypnotism. Or if you've ever been driving, you're driving home and you don't even realize what you've been thinking about or doing for that last 5 minutes, but you took the exit, you're in a hypnotized state. So you're actually in a heightened level of awareness. You're in a heightened level of focus. And so that's the misconception around the entertainment realm and then also the hypnotherapy realm. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So are we essentially with hypnotherapy, are you essentially creating like a form of muscle memory? Because when I think about like driving, right? Like there's times when I've driven the same route several times, and there's times when it's like I get from home to that destination and there's things I don't remember in between. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always attributed that with more of a muscle memory. And I think we see the same things with like jobs, right? When people do repetitive jobs all the time and they create a sense of complacency, it's always talked about as a muscle memory. So is that
Mm-hmm.
what hypnotherapy is acting on, or like a type of muscle memory when we're repeatedly putting these things into the brain, or, to, I guess, to get back to that question about like, does this how does this help people? Like, how does it affect people? Like, what is it about hypnotherapy specifically that
Mm-hmm.
is changing people's perception of the way they do certain things or feel a certain way?
Great question. So there's a couple things for the work that I combine neuro-linguistic programming as well. And so to go specifically to the muscle training question, with hypnosis, you can able to get yourself to have the awareness of where like the root reaction happens and then how and why it like keeps getting repeated and becomes that muscle memory. Because you have that knowledge, then you're able to interrupt that pattern easier and then create a new pattern. And that's where like the neuro-linguistic programming comes in and the hypnotherapy to really put that deeper into the subconscious so that that becomes a faster change. So that repetition is happening in the subconscious, because your brain doesn't know the difference of when something's happening in real life or when you're thinking about it. And so the beauty of hypnosis, and when you play through things in your mind over and over again, is you're training that new muscle memory. You don't actually have to do it in reality. It can just be thought about. And so that's what the hypnotherapy is doing, is it allowing that new neuro-linguistic connection to happen at a faster rate. So you're interrupting that old, what you called muscle memory or that old pattern, and to create a new pattern in a faster way. And so what's happening is during that time, so remember how I said like the hypnotic state is between awake and asleep. And so what we're doing is we're bringing that state on through deep relaxation and kind of putting to rest that like critical mind that's stopping information from going in and out, so that then we can put in the new information, the new pattern that you're wanting to put into your life. And so that you can practice that new muscle memory, as you were saying.
Okay. So for most people that you work with, how long, I know for me it was a couple of weeks I worked with you. How long would you say that it takes most people for this to really start to take effect?
Ooh, that's a great question, but it depends. It depends on the shift that somebody is wanting to make through. So again, I use like a few different tools depending on what people are coming with, because I trust everyone's subconscious and I want to honor all the ways that the subconscious keeps someone safe. And so we're going to work with it exactly where it's at. And so the hypnotic state allows for like to practice the new shifts and changes. But if there's some really like deep belief systems that need to be shifted, of course, again, we're going to do that at a safe time span and shift those with the neurolinguistic programming and getting the education and re-educating. And so it really does depend on what the shift is, the changes that is coming from the person who comes.
Fair enough. So then for someone that has never done hypnotherapy before, or maybe someone that's done it in the past, what would you recommend are questions they should be asking to make sure that you're the right fit? Or maybe if they're talking to another hypnotherapist, what constitutes, because obviously it's a little different than like a therapist, like a talk therapist, right? So what is suggestions for people to make sure that their hypnotherapist is the right fit for them?
I relate it to finding someone that you feel comfortable with, that when you feel like they can understand, they can listen, and like you feel like generally comfortable with, because it is a very vulnerable space. And so you will, or at least for me in my experience, like I just knew, I was like, okay, this is the right person for me. And asking yourself, like, what are the things that you want for yourself to have that experience with a hypnotherapist, so that's like what you're looking for. But mostly, yeah, that you're going to feel comfortable and safe with that person. If you're feeling kind of like bullied or manipulated in any sort of way, I would, for me personally, like not go in that direction. But that's just my own opinion. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's so like hypnotherapy, NLP, and I've had several people on the podcast that do NLP, and I always ask these questions surrounding like how to find someone that's a good fit, because I think it's become so mainstream these days because of the world of the internet and social media. Like it's so easy for people to just come out and say, oh, I do this and work with me. And it's very easy for people to get taken advantage of. So I think it's important to know, like, hey, what are the things to find someone that's a good fit? I'll say that one thing that really stuck out to me about you is that you've been doing this for a while, as opposed to people that had just got certified, a few months ago. And so for me, that was very important. But then, yeah, the comfortability level, I know you do consultations. I think that was really important too. And so just kind of some tips from my personal experience that I thought were very helpful and in finding someone, because yeah, some people are very salesy, some people are very pushy, and that's just like right from the get-go, like uncomfortable, right? So yeah, I think just knowing like what to look for is very, very important. And so you and I worked together for how many weeks was it? It was like 6 weeks. Yeah. And so just to kind of like talk through my experience with you so that people kind of know what it was. I mean, we had our consultation and then we met weekly, and it was an hour every single time. And for me, in my experience, was very relaxing. Like, it's like that time of the day that you look forward to, right? Or it's like, I just get like a me time. I get to relax. And I don't want to say that there's ever any point that I felt like super, super anxious or anything. Like it wasn't traumatizing. It wasn't hard. I always just felt very like relaxed afterwards. And so is this the experience that most of your other clients have as well with hypnotherapy?
Yeah, very relaxing. And again, because the exploration is very much based on where you are and where you're comfortable on going. And so like we're constantly asking permission the whole way through. If there's ever any discomfort or any like doubt, like we're going to work with that right there. Like we're not going to push through this whole like that culture of pushing through and like needing to get a result. Like that's not what's happening in hypnotherapy. We're really like having a new relationship with all parts of ourselves and just really taking it easy and finding a new way to foster like a healthy regenerative relationship with every single part. And so yeah, very relaxing and usually very like relieving as well, because there's these parts that we can tend to have judgments and we should, and we get to learn about where those actually come from.
Yeah.
And then start loving and then trying a new approach to like integrate all those parts and get all the needs met rather than just that grind push.
Yeah. I mean, definitely for me, like a very huge self-discovery process, which I think is so vitally important. I mean, if I could have done this stuff earlier on in my 20s, like that would have been a game changer for me. But I truly believe everything happens as it should be in life. And so, I'm grateful that I've had the self-discovery process that I've had, but it's really cool because, when I have a belief, like I'm not consistent at something, and then someone from the outside comes in, like yourself, and says, actually, there's all these instances where you have been. And I think one thing that I've been really reflecting on with myself lately is like this knowing that there's so many instances in my life where I feel like what I'm doing isn't good enough. Like I'll like set a bar. And when I hit that bar, I don't get that like dopamine feeling because I'm constantly telling myself that I'm not good enough. And that's just a continuous self-discovery that I'm learning about myself. And it's like, now that I grasp these things, I can start to work on them. I can start to peel back those layers. And so I think that, if anything, for someone that maybe has like a lot of things that they feel like they need to work on, starting somewhere, hypnotherapy is a great place to start, even just to like start that self-discovery process, because it is an ongoing journey. I mean, working with you one time, I didn't solve all my issues, but it was a start, and it helped with that one little puzzle piece that made such a huge difference. So I think that this is going to be so valuable for people that maybe resonate with this type of therapy or maybe want to try it out. And so I am going to have you share a tool with the listeners here in a second, but before we get into that, I wanted to have you share with the listeners where they can find you if they did want to reach out to you or work with you.
Oh, yes, for sure. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that, yes, we only worked on one thing with you, but I hope that we gave you like a lot of tools for you to then transfer into all the other parts of your personal development as you keep moving forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's my goal, is to like give that empowerment, sort of like, hey, this is a window open into this part of your life, and you can actually allow this to grow into all the other parts.
Yeah. Cause I mean, we worked together. It wasn't recently. I mean, it was a few months back, and there's still like, I constantly remind myself all the time about the consistency thing is the main thing. But then again, like it opens up this window to all these other things that are these positive implantations into my mind that really, really help me like ground into the more positive side of things. And like, again, it's not the end all be all. There's always work to be done. There always will be work to be done. We're humans. We're constantly growing and evolving. And, that's why I'm such a huge advocate for like always having some type of therapy, mentor, something, so that we can grow and evolve as humans and not stay stuck in like that one place. Cause that's where I am my worst, when I am just stuck because I'm not doing something to grow. And so I'm such a huge advocate for people finding what works for them. And that's why I love bringing people on the show that do different things, because not everything's for everyone, right? Hypnotherapy might be a great option for someone, but not for another person. And the military itself doesn't really offer these options for people. What they have is social workers and their mental health clinic. And the social workers they know what they know, right? Like they're not going to broaden out to these other types of therapy that might be a better fit for someone else. And so showing people that there's other options out there, and they're not all going to be super, super pricey options that aren't affordable. I do have a vision eventually of getting to a place where I could start a nonprofit and help people pay for these different therapies so that they can try them out themselves. But for now, just giving people the option to see like, hey, this is one type of therapy. Try this, see if it works for you. Try this, see if it works for you. And so I'm so glad that you and I were able to connect and provide this option to the listeners.
Yeah. And the discovery of like what works for each person individually, like if you're on that journey yourself, like just keep going and keep learning, and you're going to find the right fit for yourself. And what I loved about hypnotherapy for me is that now I have a tool so that when I am stuck, I know how to get unstuck now. So I'm not stuck for as long, which is
Right.
amazing. It's not that I don't get stuck. I'm getting more aware of what gets me stuck. So I get stuck less, but that I have the tools that I can keep on using to help me get into that next phase.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I think that too, even for active duty, is so valuable because we're not always in a situation where we can, oh, I'm going to tap out. I'm going to go talk to my therapist. And what I love to do is equip people with these tools where they can say, like, oh, I'm in a situation right now. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I have this tool that I know how to use to bring myself back to a more level state, or, something like that. And so, yeah, I'm really, really excited to hear what you have for us. And then,
Yes.
yeah, if you just want to share with people really quickly where they can find you, they want to reach out and maybe do a consultation or potentially work with you or ask you questions, what's the best place for someone to reach out?
Yes, yeah, I do love talking about the mind, and yeah, I definitely do that 1 hour deep dive consultation for everyone. So hopefully,
Yeah.
if you're interested, do reach out. My website is www.guineveremartin.com. That's GUINEVEREMARTIN.com. So that's where you can find me. I'm also on Facebook. I like to post fun things there, but yeah, I do love to talk about the mind and getting to understand the mind and the subconscious on a deeper level to empower everyone. It's such a magical, it's not magical, it's a very practical way of being able to move through life in a different way.
Yeah. All right. So that being said, Guinevere, and I'll post all this in the show notes too for anyone that wants to check it out. I always do. But that being said, let's go ahead and get into the tool that you have for our listeners. I'm really excited.
Yeah, so I know that a lot of us deal with overwhelm. We can definitely get into that space of overwhelm. And remember how I was talking earlier about like when we're all born with the primitive mind? And when we get overstressed, what happens is we actually shut off the ability for our mind to use that frontal cortex part that makes all the decisions and the logic, like it literally shuts off. And so when we're getting to overwhelm, we're shutting off that part of our brain. And so I have a very quick little exercise to help like regulate the nervous system to help get that frontal cortex back online. And the more awareness that people keep like playing and like learning of like, oh, wow, like I'm overwhelmed. Like once you get to that state of addressing like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, then you can use the practices and start seeing how it helps you move into getting calm. Because yeah, getting your nervous system back into calm is like, that's step number one.
Yeah.
I know for me, when I'm in overwhelm, if I'm super stressed and I start reacting from that space, usually it's not looking very good. And that's okay. That's a learning process. Like that's how we learn and we get feedback and try something different next time. So this is, it's going to sound silly, but it's actually a breathing practice and it helps to pause. But to give some background, it's not just breathe. Like I know like that can drive people crazy of like when you're overwhelmed, just breathe. But there's actually science, like let me just explain the science real quick. As I said, the nervous system, the frontal cortex goes offline. And so your ability to respond rather than react is shut off. And so what breathing does is it actually allows the heart rate to go down. So then you get out of that fight flight response, and then you're able to bring that frontal cortex back online. So it's not like, oh, just breathe and calm down. Like, I get it. That's not what we're doing today.
Just breathe as the breathing increases. Cause yeah. I've been there.
But it's just a starting point where you can bring control back to your nervous system. It's just the nervous system is going out of whack. And so you're able to bring your nervous system back into control and then take more like conscious, like purposeful action from there. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes sense to me. I know this stuff already, but
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think when we're talking about, I mean, this could be a whole other discussion, but I encourage the listeners, if you are more intrigued by this, to really look into and research what the body does physiologically in the fight or flight response, because I think it makes more sense. Because I've studied this in school before, so I understand, what the body does, but there are very specific responses that the body is biologically wired to do in fight or flight versus rest and digest. And I think when you understand what the body is naturally doing, we understand a little bit more why we feel the way we do under the state of overwhelm or anxiety. And I find this stuff really interesting. Not everyone does, but yeah, I just encourage, if you're listening to this and maybe this is a little confusing, you can either reach out to Guinevere and chit chat with her a little bit more about, all this stuff combined, and, working with her and what that looks like and how that can help you with your overwhelm. Or I encourage you to do some research and just figure out, like, learn your own body. Like, we're not really taught a lot about our own bodies and what our bodies do. We're just kind of given this weird general overview in school, I think. I don't know, maybe it's changed now, probably not. But yeah, I think you did a great job with the overview, but I always encourage people to always learn more, dig a little deeper, learn your body, and things will start to make a lot more sense.
Yeah. And that's some of the work that I help people with as well, is like really slowing down and gaining awareness around when that fight or flight response gets activated. And so we can actually interrupt that fight flight response in different ways. So this is one of those starting points. So.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So what we're going to do is going to do it like a practice, because the more you practice, then like when it becomes game time, then you already have it. And so that's the other thing I really ask my clients to do, is like practice before you have to actually use the tool. If your first time using the tool is like when you're already like at a like stage 9 in overwhelm, it's gonna be rough. Whereas when you practice it and then keep using it in doses, as you continue to strengthen, it's like strengthening a new muscle or like learning any new skill, anything like that. The more you practice it, when it comes game time, you're already well practiced. It's already like a habit at that point. So we're going to do a practice in our minds today.
Sounds good.
Okay. So first I'm going to have, if you're comfortable with closing your eyes, that's great. If not, that's fine too. But just bringing your focus and your awareness to yourself, and just allow yourself to take 3 deep belly breaths. Exhaling, relaxing, releasing, and letting go. Good. And again. Exhaling, releasing, and letting go. Nice deep inhale. Exhaling, releasing, and letting go. Good. And so because we're doing a practice, I'm going to have you do is just bring that feeling of overwhelm, not a strong, not a 9 out of 10, but maybe like a 3 or a 4. Just bring that energy of overwhelm up. You're getting familiar with that overwhelm. But now what I'd like you to do is allow yourself to take a deep breath, where it's almost like you're breathing into your heart for a count of 4. So taking a deep breath in. 1, 2. Good. And exhaling, slowly exhaling, letting go. Good. And again, breathing into the heart. And this time as you exhale, just calmly saying the word quietly, calm. Good. Nice deep inhale again into the heart. As you exhale, relaxed. Good. And one more time, nice deep inhale into the chest. And exhaling just one thing at a time. Good. And then just tuning in and noticing now how you're feeling more calm, more relaxed, capable. Good. And the more you practice this, the more effective it becomes. And so you find yourself practicing it more and more, because it is very effective in your ability to shift the overwhelm into calm and relax, so you can move forward in your day. And so because the more you practice, the more effective it is, I'm going to practice one more time. It's this easy to practice. You can do this anytime. So allowing yourself to bring up that feeling of overwhelm. Just do a level 4. Getting a sense of that overwhelm. It's okay. You're learning how to move through it in a new way. And now that's going to be your new cue now to allow yourself to breathe into your heart. So feeling that overwhelm. And as you breathe into the heart, nice deep inhale into the heart. And as you exhale, calm. Good. And again, inhaling into the heart. Exhaling, relax. Good. Inhaling into the heart. And exhaling just one thing at a time. Feeling capable. Just noticing as you're feeling more calm and more relaxed, the body's feeling relaxed. And again, the more you practice this, the more effective it becomes. So you find yourself practicing it more and more because it is very effective. And the more you practice it, the more effective it is. And you can use this tool whenever you're needing. And as often and as many times as you're needing to bring the body, to bring that heart rate back down to calm. Allowing you to move into the next point with calmness and the ability to respond in a way that makes best sense in that moment. When you're ready, you can open your eyes if your eyes are closed. And again, I invite you just to keep practicing this, like even if you're like brushing your teeth or like in the car or like wherever it is, again, the more you practice it before game time, the more effective it's going to be for game time. And so I really encourage even just to practice once a day, just the one time even, as you notice, because then you'll start to see that you have the ability to move that energy from overwhelm into calm and relax. And you can use whatever words make most sense for you as well. Those are just the ones that I notice help with the physical body to relax.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I know for me, I notice like when I start, and this is really any kind of like meditation or breathing, there's times that I'll start and I'll notice like my body's very tense. Like for this, for example, my shoulders were a little more forward. And as I start to breathe more into it, I notice myself physically relaxing. And what I think is really, really cool about any kind of like breathing exercise or meditative state is that for me personally, it's like all I have to worry about in that moment is just what I'm doing. Like I don't have to worry about the world around me. I don't have to worry about the next task. All I have to focus on is what I'm doing. And so I find a lot of peace and a lot of comfort in that. And then it's like, okay, now I have this kind of break in my day and I can move on to the next thing. And so I encourage you, if you're listening, try it out, practice it once a day, a couple times a day. Let me know how it works for you. If it makes a huge difference in your life, I'm really, really curious. And yeah, I hope that a lot of people take advantage of this tool. And I think it's going to be very, very valuable. So thank you so much for that, Guinevere. And thank you for coming on and just talking a little bit more about hypnotherapy, your journey with it, and how it's really, really helped people. And then also explaining, a little bit of that physiological reasoning behind it. Last thing I'm going to ask you today is just if there's anything that you want to leave the listeners with.
Yes. Love and accept exactly where you are. Honor your learning process. A lot of times we can know where we want to get to or have a goal. But our brains are amazing. Like they can see that goal, but then we really put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be there already. And I like to explain it when kids are learning their ABCs, they know, they can hear all the way to Z. And when they say ABC, we celebrate them. We're like, yes, you got to a C, good for you. But as adults, we don't do that for ourselves. We're like, oh, I should be at Z. And so just really allow yourself, like you're human and you have a learning process, and really celebrate your every single letter of the alphabet of your learning. Like it's really important to really appreciate that learning experience and accept exactly where you are as it's perfect. That's my my lasting words.
Thank you for taking the time to listen in today. With your support, we are able to increase awareness of the mental health issues affecting service members and veterans today, with the goal of creating positive change. If you got value from this episode, please take 30 seconds to subscribe and share this episode within your own network. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.